this is Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. So, Ricky Flex, initial reactions, you seem to indicate from a minute ago that this is not meeting necessarily the expectations of the previous, few films ever since Macquarie took a hold of this franchise. Tell me more what your initial reactions were.
Yeah, and let me be clear before I do this. I think the Mission Impossible legacy, no matter if this movie was if this movie was like Fallout level, it would advance the legacy. But if this movie was complete trash, I think its legacy is already cemented. It couldn't hurt the legacy of this. This movie could not hurt the legacy of Mission Impossible, in my opinion. This was just like more sprinkles on the cake or whatever you want to call it on your ice cream cone. It's not going to change anything. It's just like, oh, do I just do that extra scoop because I can? And that's what this felt like. I guess from a stunt level, holy crap, they did go above and beyond, right? With the submarine, underwater sequence. Some people were mixed with that. I personally absolutely loved it. I thought it was amazing. And then they did a Fallout, but with planes in the third act, which I thought was incredible. So on a stunt level, it was the best of this franchise. But the problem was the first act / first half of this movie, where I love the nostalgia, but didn't need it. It kind of had that feeling of like, oh, this might be the last one. But then it was just all over the place. Exposition, plot, Cruise, not Tom Cruise, but like the president's crew, Tom Cruise's crew, squad, if you want to call it, team. All these different teams. Who's actually the villain? Gabriel from Dead Reckoning was only in it for 2 scenes in the first hour and a half of this movie. And again, this is just under a 3-hour movie, just very long, unnecessary, and clearly a part 2 versus Dead Reckoning part 1. So the stunt level, what you come to the theater for, you are not disappointed, right? You will get your money's worth. But just from what we're used to seeing from the Mission Impossible franchise with Macquarie, this new, I can't say sequel trilogy now, but this new life 21st century, late 21st century Mission Impossible movies, it definitely just didn't live up to those expectations or those levels.
Okay, so I didn't know if this movie was gonna, if I'm watching this and I'm watching like the culmination and I'm watching the last Mission Impossible movie. Like, it's like I said before, Cruise and Macquarie have been really coy about it. They have not said officially this is the last Mission Impossible movie. But if you watch the first half of the movie, you're like, this is probably the last Mission Impossible. But then you watch the end of the movie and you're like, is it? Is it really the last Mission Impossible? I would bet as a gambling man that we will get another Mission Impossible movie. But before we go into any more details, spoilers, because we want to talk about this movie. This is the most successful, I think, was it international gross that the franchise has ever had opening weekend?
Biggest domestic opening of the franchise.
Domestic. $77 million is what I saw. But watching that first half, spoilers, the montages, I actually liked. When Angela Bassett is doing that voiceover and they're going from Mission Impossible 1996 and you're showing off all the spectacular stunts that Tom Cruise has done, what he's committed to this franchise, building up to the Final Reckoning. I love that stuff. I didn't think we needed 2 montages because you get one with Angela Bassett and you get one with the Entity. I'm like, well, we just kind of did this. And then we have throwbacks to Mission Impossible 3 with the White Rabbit. And we even get like a Philip Seymour Hoffman like clip inside the Final Reckoning. We have the Donlin character, the guy who is in the room with the coffee during Mission Impossible 1 with the suspended Tom Cruise sequence. He returns in this movie. So they're throwing at you all this stuff, right? Like celebrating the franchise. And it feels like the end of it. What really, I think, the first half of the movie was relying on montages, homages, and also the Luther character and his death. And we don't see deaths from Mission Impossible characters. So to see him actually go down, I thought had an emotional pull. Montages worked if it is, in fact, the final movie. But the rest of it is pretty mundane in the first half. I was thinking, like, this first half kind of sucks. Right? Like there was just no action sequences. You have no established villain. You're fighting the AI again. That was really a polarizing, I guess, element of Dead Reckoning. if we just focus on the first half here, I was nervous when I was watching the first half of this movie. That can the second half kind of recover?
So we reference our cousin Palmer sometimes on this podcast when it relates to going to see a movie in the theaters and like the Palmer test of like, are you going to walk out of this movie? I think if he saw this movie, he walks out. That's how bad the first hour and a half was. Like, as in how boring for an action movie, how boring, and nothing was going on. Literally nothing was going on except trust me, we don't trust you. We're putting you in cuffs. Trust me, give me one last shot at this. I don't know. Then we have to get to the submarine. And finally, we get, after an hour and a half and only one action sequence, we get another one. An hour and a half, Brian. An hour
Mission
and a half.
Impossible.
It's crazy. I kept looking at my watch because, like, as I see a movie and I know we're gonna review, I'm like, all right, like first act's gonna be around the 45-minute mark for this length of movie and yada yada yada. So for this one, I'm like, all right, it's all about the action sequence because, like you said, but like what Corey said, it's they literally write down the stunts and they write the movie around the stunts, right? So for Mission Impossible, you're timing by the stunts more so than the acts. So I great first, and I won't say great, fine. We did a fine action sequence with around the Luther character, but then after that, it literally is almost an hour and a half until the next one. It's
This
crazy.
So this is why I was referencing that GQ article. Like you just said, they build around the stunt. Like they think of the stunt and then they make the movie. The first half of this was so exposition heavy, and usually you don't care about that. Macquarie talks about it. You're not paying attention to all the intricate details of the plot. And when they're spitting it at you, a lot of times in Mission Impossible movies, you'll splice together action scenes, to kind of divvy up the exposition. You don't get that in this movie. Like, the movie doesn't pick up for me until you have the split, the crew fighting the Russians inside of the St. Matthew Island, and then Tom Cruise with Tremel Tillman. Like, when they're split between those two, the movie picks up and it doesn't stop from there. But before that, so boring. And there is like Fallout. Think about Fallout and all the like throughout the movie, the stunts that are done. Like whether it's the Halo jump into the bathroom fight scene, and then you have like the standoff between the IMF and the CIA. Then you have the helicopter sequences. It's literally every 20 minutes they're hitting you with something, and there's not much like hand to hand combat. You usually get that in the first half of Mission Impossible movies, and this is why I think Dead Reckoning is kind of slept on. The first part of that movie, even when there's no action happening, it's fun. Like that's why one of my favorite like Tom Cruise as Ethan Hunt performances when he's meeting the Haley Atwell character. She's explosive on screen. The airport sequences, the crew is operating, all systems go with Benji on the suitcase, Luther on the ones and twos up top. It's just so fun. You don't get that fun feeling in the first half of this movie,
This is where I think you're absolutely spot on here, and I think a key word to say is pacing. Dead Reckoning just had a blistering pace about it, whether it was the action sequences or the charismatic Tom Cruise, Haley Atwell duo that was on screen for the first act of that movie, right? To get you through some of the slower parts, whether it's them in the Italian embassy, whatever you want to call it, the police station there in Venice, whether it's they're at the Entity Club and it's your introduction to Gabriel, and you have White Widow, Vanessa Kirby, who's not in this movie, which maybe they needed her. It's a little bit more star power, maybe. And then you have Tom Cruise and Haley Atwell. You have the four of them bantering in the club. So like and then you have the Shea Higham character like looming over that in that club scene. So like even outside of the stunts in that movie, it was still very entertaining because you have charisma. You have this dynamic relationships that are building and you're getting introduced to it. And that's Mission Impossible, where even though it's not the action sequences, it's still blowing through at a blistering pace, whether it's in with the team dynamics with Simon Pegg and Luther, or it's like I just described. So that's where this one severely lacked. And that's why that first hour and a half, like, again, the Palmer test, I think it fails. I think it fails the Palmer test.
I like how we call it the Palmer test. Shout out Palmer. We'll get him on the podcast. He loves mobster movies. That's when we'll get him. But even like the beginning of Dead Reckoning, when they have the gassing of Kittredge and they bring Kittredge back into the franchise, amazing. And also, we lifted up one mask, I think, in this movie. One face mask.
Severe lack of masks in this movie.
And that might have been the most exciting scene of the first half of the movie. right? When they had like the Cruise escorting the Palm Clementif character, then they rip off the mask. And then honestly, the Shea Wiggum character, I like Shea Wiggum as an actor. His character doesn't work for me in these movies. And they tried to make him more interesting because, like, this is why also part one, like, it's Dead Reckoning. It really does feel like a part one after watching this movie. Like, they should have kept the title. They should have kept it part one, part two. I think it would make part one, I think it would age better because that movie feels a little bit incomplete now if you're saying it's not a part one, part two, but it's all just continuing the same events. Usually these movies stand alone pretty well. This is clearly part one, part two. But the Wiggum character, they tried to give him some juice, and they said he was the son of John Voight's character in Mission Impossible 1. I was like, okay, we're throwing this. This is once again, we're paying tribute. We're remembering things that happened 30 years ago. But honestly, the Shea Wiggum thing, whenever he appears on the screen in these movies, I'm a little annoyed because there's so much intricate details for the plot. There's so many other, like, there's Russians, there's like the entity itself, there's so many like pushing forces against Ethan Hunt. You don't need another guy. And so when he comes in to fuck everything up in the third act, you're like, of course, get this guy off my screen. Kittredge is also like that 1-2 punch, just annoying the crap out of me. Don't love him in these movies.
Yeah, very unnecessary. I think I was a lot harsher on that character than you when we saw Dead Reckoning Part 1 or Dead Reckoning now. Because I was more down on that movie. But now after rewatching it, I'm like, man, maybe Shea Higgins' character wasn't terrible. Now, but then after seeing Final
Did
Reckoning,
we
I'm like,
need him? It's just like you have someone else. You have Gabriel, AI, you got the global forces, you got nuclear type of things going on.
but like that's what I was about to say. Like, there's too much going on, too much complexity, and we're just throwing this guy in South Africa at the end.
Yeah.
And Gabriel, outside of the plane sequence, is barely in this movie. Like
Yeah.
there isn't a villain in this movie. If you honestly think about it, the villain's like Angela, the government, kind of.
Wait, Angela Bassett's an ally. She's an
Well,
ally.
yeah, but like the government around her.
Well,
Like
Kittredge
it's
is the
because
government and
yeah,
Shea Wiggum because they want the entity for the United States.
because
They
like
want to be in control of it.
think of Dead Reckoning. Gabriel is the villain because he has the battle for the crucifix key, right? By the way, there's multiple keys. What the hell? Like that was crazy. Russia just has another key. Dead Reckoning doesn't matter then. That literally tells you a movie does not matter. You can just make another key, make a duplicate. I just go to the hardware store and make another one of these bad boys. Ridiculous. But going back to my point, Dead Reckoning, like there's a clear villain. You have the on the train sequence when they're fighting mano a mano. Like that was awesome. We did not like. I know we had the great like kind of Fallout callback with the helicopter fight, chase down. We had that with the planes here with the Cruise. Awesome. But besides that, like Gabriel is not in this movie. He is just not in it. And it's like, all right, who's the villain? The entity, obviously, but that's more of an overarching like system. So like, who is really the enemy? It's just everyone against Tom Cruise. Sorry, Ethan Hunt, because he's just getting denied. He's like, trust me, and everyone doesn't trust him,
The
right?
enemy are the odds for Ethan Hunt.
Yeah, yes, honestly, what
That's
it is.
honestly what it is. Because every time he does something, it's not only the audience knows how improbable it is that it's happening, but there's such a meta type of feel, I bet. It's just like when the Tremel Tillman and Katie O'Brien and that crew on the submarine are talking about what Tom Cruise or what Ethan Hunt is about to do. They're one and the same at this point. When they're like, you're gonna be submerged and it's gonna be like negative whatever 50 degrees, underneath in that water. You're if you travel too fast, or you ascend too fast, your lungs are gonna explode. It's basically just dialogue or to tell the audience that this is how dangerous this stunt is and this is what I'm willing to do, what Tom Cruise is willing to do in order to give you something you've never seen before in theaters. Right? They're talking about the suit itself weighs over 100 pounds. They're talking about the real world, implications of trying to pull this off. That's where it feels like the villain are the odds. It's like the villain is the impossible. Like he's doing the impossible.
But like that's where it felt like this was a little meta.
It is. It
You know?
100% is.
And obviously this is so unbelievable. All this Mission Impossible movies, right? And like they even make fun of it in Dead Reckoning in that Kittredge opening scene with that whole government national security room saying like the IMF, you mean the International Monetary fund or whatever. It's like, no, the other IMF, Impossible Mission Force, and everyone's like, what the heck? Like they're being very meta about it there, but like this movie was full of the unbelievableness and the meta-ness of it all, and it actually thought was a detriment versus the previous ones. If it was anything meta, it was like, all right, but we're still going along with Ethan Hunt's story here and his arc. This one was just like, we're just doing this for the stunts and we're lacking everything else.
100% for the stunts, but the stunts did land. I will give it that. And I think the second half saved the movie 100%. And I think they knew that. I think Macquarie knew that. I think Cruise knew that. I think the guy is older. Like Cruise is 62. So it's like maybe he can't be doing the amount of stunts he did, let's say, in Fallout, but he's got to expend all his energy into creating the most spectacular circus-like sequences. So the submersion, the submarine, the solo mission is one of the greatest stunts in the franchise. I don't know where it ranks. I did make a list of all like the impossible stunts of the Mission Impossible franchises. This one sticks out not only because how physically taxing it was. I read that Cruise literally had to carry a 125-pound suit as he was submerged. He's got to hold his breath. He's got to divert and avoid all of these different, missiles and things that are on that submarine. He's twisting and turning, almost like it was like an Inception like set where because of the gravity and the water shifting, like the whole set is like rotating. It's incredible. I gotta see the behind the scenes for it, but the way it's shot is spectacular. And you needed that scene because it was so exposition heavy in the first half. It goes silent for the next 20 minutes, and you're just watching Tom Cruise survive and do something that no other actor does. That scene saved the movie. And the biplane scene, amazing. We've seen him do things in the air with things like Fallout. But when I saw the submersion scene and the quietness of it, the tension of it, the oohs and ahs we got from the crowd, it's up there with the best of the best in the Mission Impossible franchise. That's where I felt like this is something different. This is something we haven't seen. And it shows you the lengths that Cruise is willing to go. I thought saved the movie.
Definitely. And then also you gotta finish the movie strong, right? And so you have that huge, long, quiet underwater scene, but then you have the loud airplane chase fight with Gabriel that was an ode to Fallout, but kind of leveled up.
Yeah.
and
It,
and it did both of those big ones, and you're walking out of the theater saying, "Wow, that movie ripped." But it didn't. Like the first half, the first 90 minutes did not rip, but the second 90 minutes absolutely did. And it was because of those two scenes. And one of them, again, is a 20-minute quiet underwater scene, no dialogue, which is remarkable. It's remarkable what they did there. So again, like I know I was coming hard at it for a while there, but this does see some of the peaks of the franchise and peaks of action filmmaking. Where if this was a 2027 movie, this will be winning the Academy Award when that comes into the Academy in that 2028.
yeah. Like I don't know how they would be able to top that one because the biplanes, think about like I'm talking about the water submersion, when they go to the Russian submarine. The biplane thing is arguably more physically impressive because I was reading about it. They're on biplanes that are 60 feet above the ground. And you have like almost like a canal that they're traveling through, like a tunnel. It's super dangerous. And they went through different pilots and like experts and naval experts, and they said don't do this. Like this is not a good idea. And Tom Cruise, they just found some other experts that would, be able to execute this or show us like how it can be done. And the winds that are gusting are over 100 miles per hour when he's on that plane. And there's like the measurement, I forgot what it is. It's like G's of force. The G's of force are so extreme. The pilots were nervous that when Tom Cruise is like pushing against those cable lines on the wings of the plane going to like the base of the plane, that Tom Cruise would just be split in half when he was doing it. And so how they pulled it off, it shows how dangerous it is that he literally could be cut in half by doing this. Simon Pegg in this article talks about like when he says goodbye to Tom Cruise because they shoot the dialogue scenes and all the one-on-one scenes in London, and then he goes off to South Africa to shoot the biplane scene. Like Simon Pegg says, uh, I'll see you when you get back, or maybe not. And then he goes and shoots the scene because he knows like there's a chance that he does not live in order to like get this movie, make this movie. But I did with how complex it was, the way the other scene was shot, it's just insane. The ISO scenes of Cruise when it's like I don't know how many feet away, like hundreds of feet away, when he rips off, he's basically just wearing underpants. When he rips off the suit and you know how cold that water is, you're just so dialed into this movie, you know? I don't know about you. I know the level of difficulty, the biplane kind of takes the cake, but I feel like you kind of seen that before with Fallout. What I saw underneath the water, it's like, holy shit, that is cinema. That is Tom Cruise.
Yeah, that's why, like, if you have to, like, take a stunt away from this movie, like, yeah, you only had to pick one, it would be the submarine underwater one because that's new.
Which is crazy to say.
Yeah, which is absurd because honestly, I think the other one, like you were just describing it, I would say that's probably my favorite, but you got to go with the new one, right? As like which like this Fallout, that one's the helicopter. You kind of already did it. If this one came before Fallout, maybe it's vice versa. But the submarine one, it's like not only have we not seen a Mission Impossible, we just never seen it,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And like you were saying on the technical level, some of the stuff that you were saying there with the stunts shows like how impressive it is just making not only making these movies, but also the acting ability. Why I said in John Wick 4, like, even though Keanu Reeves says like 97 words in that movie, like, you have to respect the acting that related to the stunts because it's a lot of physical acting. It is. So like I know these type of movies and roles will never get nominated for Academy Awards, but I will say like some stunt work like this, if the actor's actually doing the stunt work with it, it should be highly considered for like prestigious awards because it's a lot. We've seen a lot better roles like this where we've seen a lot of bad Academy nominations for acting.
I'm starting to think is Tom Cruise is an incredible actor. Is he a better athlete than actor?
Yes.
Like
I'm the guy that I'm a Tom Cruise actor stan,
because
but
he's doing things that other people would never try or could do, especially at his age.
like a lot of it is just mental, like mentality of
Yes.
Tom Cruise saying we're gonna do this, and like that Matt Damon clip on that talk show goes around every time there's a Tom Cruise movie coming out, saying like imitating Tom Cruise, telling him how he does the stunts, and he says, I get a new stunt coordinator. And then you literally were saying how they did that for this movie, how many years later after that interview. And it's just like he always finds a solution, he doesn't take no for an answer. So like maybe athletically, like, yeah, he's 62 years old. There's gonna be better athletic actors out there that are 35 or whatever, right? But like it's just the mentality of Tom Cruise pushes him over the edge.
It's like LeBron at 40, like what he's able to pull off. That's what Tom Cruise is pulling off things that a 25-year-old would hesitate to do, no matter how ballsy you are. He did the Halo jump and Fallout like over 100 times. Like they kept doing it. How that is that good for your body, man? Is that safe for your body? Absolutely not. But insane, insane. And the producers of this, the one of the co-writers of the movie was in this GQ article. He said that the sets are extremely meta. He says that when they do these sequences, people are on pins and needles and they only have a certain amount of film and they have to have the right angles. And they really are like, it feels like they're on a race against time to get the shot done. So when people say like Tom Cruise kind of is Ethan Hunt is Tom Cruise, it's not that crazy because they feel that when they're shooting the clip, the film, you know, Christopher McQuarrie, they were saying he does a lot of the stunts too. He has to be around. He has to be able to shoot these scenes, you know, and guide what the shot needs to look like. And that was honestly between the cinematographer and McQuarrie and Cruise, what they captured underneath the water. It just looked spectacular. You needed that break from the dialogue and to have those moments where Cruise is getting like pushed against the missiles onto like the grates and you see like him ripping his clothes off, you're like, I feel like he's gonna die. Like I feel like he's gonna die. I know he's not going to, but I'm on absolute pins and needles. So we talked about the stunts. We kind of covered this, but I want to talk about some of the newcomers to this franchise because we have a lot of like the regular crew coming back. Benji. We have Luther's unfortunate death. Emotional death. I guess before we get into the newcomers, what do you think of the Luther death? Did it work for you?
We had to have a death because by the end of this movie there were no other deaths, which is absolutely absurd. How nobody else died in South Africa. No, none
Yes,
of the team. Like you had to have some deaths. Just kill off Donlo. You kill off Donlo and the wife and the new
I,
guy.
I like Donlo in this
I
movie.
know, but that made no sense. 10 seconds to make it 40 yards for three of them.
Yeah,
Not even 40, definitely more than that. But like, come on, no way. Maybe just the new guy because he's athletic. Donlo and his wife are going down. They're going down with the ship, without a doubt. That made no sense. But the Luther death, you knew he was dying immediately because he was like he was in like a self-made hospital bed or whatever facility. He's like, but like that's like Mission Impossible, where like they just tell you right away what's going to happen, kind of if it's going to be a major death or something like that.
I thought it was excellently done. I think that Ving Rhames, the last couple movies, like he's kind of been a weak link potentially of these Mission Impossible movies. I see the face you're making. Yeah.
That was harsh.
Because like he's not doing much of the physical acting. Obviously, he's the man in the chair, and I don't know. It feels like he can kind of roll out of bed and do his role. But this movie, it was a lot of acting for him. I think it was the best acting he's done, and I don't know how long, maybe ever in the franchise. And I think he deserves it. He's been around since '96. He was in the first Mission Impossible. He has been kicking the entire time. So I think it also worked because you have his voiceover at the end talking to Ethan after he completes the mission. I'm like, yes, that was a great chef's kiss to the Luther character, and we say goodbye to him. And that's where it also felt like this might be the last movie because they don't kill mainstays in the franchise. They didn't kill Luther. They didn't kill Luther till this movie. Tells me it indicates it could be the end, although he's not like Tom Cruise dying. So yeah, I thought it worked. I thought the end helped it. But newcomers, who do you like? Who stuck out? Who were your favorites?
Yeah, let's just get this over with now. Travell Trillman is absolute boss. He is the absolute man. He is someone, Travell, he's someone where we know him for Severance. He'll be continue to do Severance, but he's 39 years old. He's a late bloomer, and he's going to be a great supporting actor in actual movies, full-blown movies going forward. I'm confident after seeing this movie. Because we know him as Mr. Milchek, and he's a villainous character, but like a likable villainous character. And now, hey, you know what? We poked the bear. Right after he said that line, I'm like, wow, I'm bought in. I'm bought in. Likable, great actor, can feed off of any type of other acting ability, whether it's dramatic, comedic, whatever, any style. That's the word I'm looking for. I'm confident in this man going forward on the big screen.
Scene stealer. He stole the movie when he was on the screen. Not many lines, but he still has like a little bit of zestiness to him. He's got some spice whenever he's talking. It could be in mundane dialogue. He makes it interesting. I would argue when he came on the screen in that submarine with Tom Cruise, the movie instantly got better. And he is kind of the hidden MVP of this movie.
He is MVP strong.
Sixth man.
He's the sixth man.
Yes, but I think he's my second favorite performance behind Tom Cruise in this movie. Right? Everyone else is just talking to talk. He's like putting in work. He's putting in work in this movie, and he doesn't have much to work with. That just showed me how good he was. Because when he showed up, like when I say like, yeah, it's like six man, unsung hero. He's someone that when he showed up, the movie got instantly better and it didn't turn back. I don't think it's a coincidence. I really don't. I thought he was really good. But then we had guys like Nick Offerman, Holt McCallany, who are like seem so perfect for like the government, either working with or against Ethan Hunt. The guys who don't buy into him, they think you're crazy, Hunt, or you're crazy, Madam President. Those guys, I think, did what was expected of them. The Nick Offerman death just meant nothing.
Nothing. Terrible foreshadowing.
Just no emotion to it whatsoever.
Yeah,
But
and I'll just say this too, like, the Angela Bassett I thought was fine, but, like, the son storyline, like, totally unnecessary, like, that was just extra
is that a
tension.
carryover?
I don't believe so. No, because Dead Reckoning, there's a post she's, like, in the background of the opening scene that we talked about with Kittredge face like with that national security meeting there. She's assumed to be the president with her picture on the wall, and then obviously Fallout, she's the head of the CIA. So she was not in Dead Reckoning. Heavy part in Fallout, obviously heavy part in this movie. No carryover with the son. So that was kind of just randomly placed in there. The Hannah Waddingham character from Ted Lasso, fine. Kind of like a similar type of figure as Ted Lasso, just someone that's the boss senior figure and got to take a risk on something. Didn't have the scene stealing moments like a Tremel Tillman did, you know?
She was pretty good. I think she was one of my favorites of the newcomers, but I just didn't understand why she was so emotional. I'm like, "Why is she crying in every scene right now? This is
May
Mission
22nd,
Impossible."
1996.
Yeah, like, I don't even remember. Like, so many elements of the plot just, like, are just in and out of my in one ear, out the other, and, nothing's memorable. Even this movie even explained the White Rabbit, and I don't even know from this movie what the White Rabbit thing does still from Mission Impossible
It's
3.
just the entity.
Did
It
it have
allowed the
the
entity to happen.
so it had the source code for the entity to be made or something, but I was just like, I still don't get it. Like we've now been trying to figure out this question since 2006. I still don't know the answer, and
This is why
they made it a point of emphasis to explain it in this movie.
this is why Fallout was such a perfect movie because, like, it still had its complexities, but, like, you're still able to follow everything. But the core is the stunts and seeing Tom Cruise run or jump on helicopters or fly helicopters and whatnot. Like, it had the perfect blend. This one had too much going on when you're too much in a blender watching this movie, where when the stunts happen, you're like, oh, this is awesome. And you leave the theater like, wow. But then when you look back and let's say in a week after you see this movie, you're gonna be like, oh, that movie probably wasn't even that great. Like if you really look back at it.
If you watch it at home, it's not going to hit the same. I think it's not going
Yeah,
to age as well as, let's say, a Fallout. I don't think it will.
I totally agree.
I also want to talk about Asai Morales as Gabriel, carryover villain. Seems like, in my opinion, he's like the first henchman for the entity. So it's like he's the villain's human form of the villain, human form of the entity. But this movie, he's doing a different performance. I don't know if you realized it or not. Like he is so subdued and smooth in the first movie, but he is in Dead Reckoning. But in Final Reckoning, he's crazy. He's kind of zany. He's screaming a lot. I just thought it was he's just a different man. He's someone that has fallen out of favor of the entity. Actually it favors Ethan Hunt over Gabriel, right? For him to, actually commit this task and take over the world through AI. But Gabriel to me was just kind of losing it in this movie. Just totally different character, it felt like.
Yeah, like that was kind of a shock, like because it's like they had to explain a lot of Dead Reckoning, and they did a lot of flashbacks to Dead Reckoning to kind of explain some stuff going on overarching dialogue, and that was one of them where like I think it was Grace Haley Atwell's character's like, "Hey, didn't you like mess up in the last movie, and now the entity like doesn't like you anymore?" And then he was like, "Yes, I am on my own now," and like he's like trying to explain to us what's going on, and that's a part of like this terrible first hour of exposition and dullness.
Yeah. But I thought honestly, I liked him more in the first movie as like a ghost, but in human form, the human form of the entity. When he
There's more
doesn't have
curiosity
when
around it,
he
more mystique.
like he's just slicker. And when he doesn't have the entity to back himself up, he just becomes a less compelling villain. And then he just acts a little bit crazier in this movie. I just didn't love it. Uh okay. Let's talk about this before scores. Do you think this is the final Mission Impossible movie with Tom Cruise?
I am 50-50 on it. Because if you look at this one where there's the White Rabbit reveal back to MI3, you have the ode to Fallout in that final stunt sequence. You have Donlow coming back, ode to MI1. You had the Phelps connection, MI1. You have all these other connections and nostalgia play nonstop throughout this movie and flashbacks. I think they're trying to tell you this is the last one. But when you look at real life and them not actually throwing the axe on it and saying this is the end. And it doesn't mean that Ethan has to die in the final Mission Impossible. It just means they have to like seal it off at some point, like they did in MI3, right? Where like they were telling you then that's the end, right? That was clear. He runs off with his wife. They didn't do that here, right? So I think what they're gonna do is they're taking a pause. Tom Cruise, he did the Inner 2 movie. He's still got the space movie coming up, maybe Edge of Tomorrow 2 coming up. He has a lot of other things that are gonna take a long time to do. Where I think it's a suspension. 5 years, no Mission Impossibles, and he'll come back when he's 70.
I think they will be making another one. I think they will be making another one. The homages, I think it is kind of telling you this is at least the last time you're going to see Ethan Hunt for a long time. And I think it's going to be, when does the next idea for a stunt come in? And when they have the idea and Cruise isn't busy making whatever that he's making, like you talked about, the projects ahead, then he'll come back to Mission Impossible. To me, this movie ended, it wasn't finite end of a franchise. It almost was just leaving the door cracked. That's what this ending felt like. They went through and showed the different members of the team. Haley Atwell, it has the new French cop that's like a part of the team now. Benji's still there. There is enough to make a movie, right? If they need to, with the team that we have. It'll be interesting whether Tom Cruise just becomes so absorbed in these other projects for Warner Brothers that he won't make another Paramount movie, and he still has to. He probably will be making Top Gun 3. So will that take a precedent?
Right.
It probably does take precedent over Mission Impossible 9. Top Gun 3 does. So I think he just wants to get these projects done, leave the door open, and then see if like the fans 5 years later want to see him come back as Ethan Hunt.
Yeah, and there's so many other like external forces, like you just mentioned Top Gun 3. That reminds me Paramount and his Warner Brothers deal. Then he has the Paramount, and then obviously Paramount is trying to sell with Skydance, David Ellison, and that's going through a lot of regulatory hurdles with Trump and whatnot, Trump administration. So like Top Gun 3 is probably happening before this would like even if like this wasn't the final reckoning, this was just like, oh, another Mission Impossible. Top Gun 3 would still be made before Mission Impossible. And not even including the stunts that need to be done, not just Mission Impossible, but Top Gun as well. So yeah, there's way too much on his plate right now to be saying, you know what, let's just do another submarine sequence and take years off my life doing that. I think we got a long way to go, and I think I'll give it credit because like Tom Cruise, like in these Mission Impossible movies, he'll never die in these. Like it's like The Rock versus Vin Diesel in Fast and Furious. They both refuse to lose a fight in their contracts, so they have to kind of like when they fought in Fast 5, they have to like separate and no one officially loses the fight. Ethan Hunt can't actually die on screen. That's why like this I thought was a decent send off. If it's like, oh, if this is the last one, you could see like, oh yeah, they did all the things that needed to be the last one. But then yes, they did, like you said, they left the door open a crack where yeah, they can make another one. I thought it was a good like blend of that.
Yeah, you'll never see him die. So therefore, there will never be a finite ending for this franchise. That's exactly it. Let's do scores right now, and then we're gonna move on to our Mission Impossible rankings. Maybe I was thinking maybe we even tier the stunts that we've seen from these movies. That might be a tall task. We'll see if we get to it. But scores, what do you give the final reckoning?
70.
How tricky. I'm a 75. I'm shocked you went that low.
I was being nice too. 70. It's really because of the stunts.